Oh, big lunker, baby. Woohoo!
One of the lures you will always find on my fishing kayak or in my tackle box is the Wacky Worm, or what a lot of people call the Wacky Rig. And the beauty about it is that likely you already have everything you need already in your tackle box. You just need to learn the technique, and man, this thing slays some bass. All right, first I'm going to show you how to set up the Wacky Worm. First, you're going to need a 5-inch Senko. I like the green pumpkin for the clear water presentations. If I'm fishing stained water or muddy water, I'll break out a black or blue or even a black Senko. Next is your hook, and you get a lot of different opinions on this, but I've dialed this in over many years. I like the size 1 Gamakatsu octopus hook, and I've tried other Wacky Worm hooks. In fact, recently I tried one from 6 cents, and the first bass that I caught, it bent out the hook. So I like a really stout hook, and the Gamakatsu size 1 octopus does the trick. And let's talk about hooks for a second. Buy high quality hooks. Trust me, you do not want to learn this lesson the unfortunate way. Guys, we spend thousands of dollars on boats and gear and tackle. Do not try to save a couple bucks on hooks. Buy high quality ones. And for my setup, I usually use a medium power rod, and I'll use 10-pound braid, or I'll use 10-pound fluorocarbon. Usually does the trick. And there's a couple ways to set this up. You can buy one of these wacky tools. They're really cheap. I'll hold one in the description below. And essentially you put the worm inside, then you run one of these rubber rings around it, and boom, there you go. Essentially what we do is take the hook, rub it around the rubber ring. And why you want to set it up this way is so you don't lose a ton of rubber worms, because the other way you can actually hook it straight through the worm, but after about 15 to 20 casts it's going to rip out the plastic. You're going to lose the worm. You have to keep on setting it over and over again. The downsides to this, and I found out, I just went on a fishing trip, is a lot of times small bass will come and grab this and rip the worm right from the ring. Basically you'll reel in your hook, and all there will be is this little ring here, the plastic ring. So that's one downside. And the other downside is it takes a little time to set these up. I mean, we're talking seconds, but nonetheless, if you're out in the lake, the last thing you want to do is mess around with the gear. I want to be fishing all the time. You might be thinking, hey, I can just set this up the night before. Pro tip, I would not recommend that. I did that to these right here, and as you can see, the ring has enough pressure to kind of break and rip your worm in half. It did that on probably half of these guys, and the other half it did not. So depending on the composition of your worm, pre-rigging these with the little rubber rings might rip them right in half, so keep that in mind. And the second way to hook the worm, which is my personal favorite, is right through the worm itself. Where I always hook it is right to the inside of the clitellum of the worm, and boom, there you go. The small bass are not going to nibble this off. You might just feel the nibble, but you're going to keep your worm on there. One of the other reasons I like this is it actually hides the hook a little bit. The con of this, every 5 to 10 casts, you got to keep an eye on this, because this will get really loose. So what you have to do is kind of rehook it into a different part of the worm, or eventually you're going to make that cast and this thing's going to go flying. Now there's a few things to take into consideration when fishing the Wacky Worm. 99% of the time I fish the Wacky Rig, I fish it weightless. I know there's some times you can put some nail weights in the end or a panhead screw, and it kind of makes it kind of like cheap, poor man's Nico rig. All right, next, how do I retrieve the Wacky Worm? And this is key. If you can dial this in, bass are gonna slam this thing. So essentially what I do is I use this as a target strategy. If I like that pocket or that cover, I'll throw this out, and what I'll do is let it pause for a few seconds, maybe 1 or 2 seconds, depending on the shelf that I'm on. And a lot of times the bass will smash it right on the pause. But if it don't, I give it a little tug, 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 and I stop, let it pause. And usually what the bass will do, they'll smash it on that pause. But if I do that series 5 times and I don't catch a bass, I just go ahead and reel it in. I've found over the years that anything past 5 tugs, I typically will not get a bite. So don't spend a ton of time retrieving after 5 tugs. You're just wasting your time. You'll have a better chance of catching bass if you reel it in and cast to a different spot. Another fun thing about the Wacky Worm is when you throw it, a lot of times you can see it, and the bass will hit it like a topwater frog. And boom, there'll be a blow up, and it's a ton of fun. And so many times you actually see the bass strike this before you actually feel the bass. And here's another pro tip here. Do not set the hook unless you feel the full weight of the fish. On the Wacky Worm, a lot of times you'll lose it and set the hook too early because you'll see it before the bass had actually had time to swallow it. Now, this is especially true a lot of times when you use braid. You're throwing braid out, braid floats on top of the water. You'll be able to tell if the bass took it on the fall because this will tighten out and start moving. So just keep that in mind. You want to feel the full weight. Even though you can see the braid moving, give it another tug and make sure that thing is actually taking it before you set the hook. Simply put, the Wacky Rig will simply smash bass. I was just down in Southeast Ohio for a 4-day fishing trip, and there were 3 of us, and we caught 308 bass, primarily using the Wacky Worm. And guys, it's just not numbers. I got 4.5-pound bass, 5.5-pound bass on the Wacky Rig. So dial in this rig and you will be happy with your results. Hey guys, thanks for watching. See ya.